Your station, 101 FM, with Saturday Sports Scene.
Good morning and welcome to Sports Scene for another week right here on 101 FM. I'm Kevin Braysher here with you as always, and this week it's a big week in the NRL. The NRL Grand Final tomorrow night between the Manly Seagulls and the Sydney Roosters. Going to be a cracking game of football. We're going to give you a full preview of that game in the second hour of the show. And so much more to talk about on the show here today. And joining me to talk about it, the founding father of Sports Scene, Mr. Darren Madigan. Darren, welcome to the show, mate.
Good morning, Kevin. Good morning, everybody. And good morning, Ethan. Ethan's with us for the last time, for this time around anyway, this morning. And, mate, we're going to have a great show, an enjoyable show, and we'll have a bit of a chat a bit later on about all of that. But, mate, a huge weekend we've had, and a huge weekend coming up with the NRL Grand Final. Really looking forward to that. And so much sport. It's unbelievable. I love summer kicking in.
Absolutely right. We can't wait for it. And we may as well get to the man of the moment there, Mr. Ethan James from the East Tigers, mate. Welcome to the show. And today's going to be your last day on the show, mate. Fill us in. Where are you going?
It is, Kev. Last day here on the radio. I'm moving to a little town called Broken Hill on the border of South Australia and New South Wales. So, yeah, back of Burke. Literally, I think it's actually behind Burke. So that's where
And down a bit.
And down a bit, yeah. So it'll be interesting. A bit of an adventure. Working as a sports journalist for the newspaper. So yeah, gonna miss you guys.
Oh, mate, you've been an awesome addition to the show this year. We will miss you too, but we're going to send you out on a high note. Plenty of rugby league to talk about today. Unfortunately, I've got to ask you first of all, mate. Bit of an unhappy afternoon there. Last Sunday afternoon for the East Tigers, going down in that grand final to the Mackay Cutters, mate. How was the mood afterwards? Yeah,
they were pretty. It was pretty somber. They were pretty quiet. But now that the dust has sort of settled a bit, it's been a week since the grand final, and we had the presentation night last night. But just looking back at on the season, how the club's gone, they won the premiership in the Colts, which is the under-20s. They won the reserve grade competition, and they made it through to the grand final. And although they didn't get the result in the big one, like the club as a whole had a really successful year. And I think now that everyone's sort of able to reflect a bit more, everyone's pretty proud of the way the year's gone.
So they should be, mate. They had a great year, the club, mate. And, of course, the second hour of the show today, we're going to be talking the NRL Grand Final. Manly up against the Roosters, two great sides. Should be a good game of footy.
Yeah, that's it. And just on the Intrust Super Cup Grand Final, it was an absolutely cracking match of footy. It was like went right down to the wire. So that was good. Yeah, and the NRL, the big one, two sort of really tough teams. It's going to be physical, so looking forward to that as well.
Sure will be. And rounding out the panel for this morning, as always, from the AFL Queensland Hall of Fame from the Southport Sharks, Mr. Craig Crowley. Craig, welcome back, mate.
Yeah, g'day, mate. How are you? Yeah, it's sad to see you go, Ethan, but it's been enjoyable, and I hope your venture goes very, very well. It's a little bit of Aussie rule territory down in Broken Hill. So
it is. I'll be calling you for your 2 cents.
Yes, mate, I will. You'll come back all the wise, and you'll be asking the big questions.
Well, for now, mate, I'll ask you. The AFL Grand Final last week, Hawthorn taking out their 11th premiership, mate. What do you think?
Yeah, look, it's a bit of a shame in a way. You look at the hype and everything that goes with it, but the football has got to a stage where the spectacle has a little bit gone out of it, and not to say it wasn't a great game of football in the way of a contest, but the skill level's down because they just crowded up so much, and the excitement's gone out of it a little bbit, but it was still a great game, still a close game, and that's all you can ask for. The two top sides probably for the year. Competing extremely well, and but I'll probably talk about it a little bit later about what we really think about the AFL Grand Finals.
We'll do a real debrief of the AFL Grand Final, the AFL season in general, in the first hour of the show, so make sure you stay with us and listening for that. Some of the big topics we're going to hit on the show this morning, AFL, while we're on the topic, Buddy Franklin, linking with the Sydney Swans, mate. Where did that come from? All of a sudden, they've swooped in, the Sydney Swans.
Well, it seems to be a bit of a sign of the times, isn't it? Players going to Sydney. I think Kurt Tippett was always going to Brisbane, and done and dusted. Next thing you know, bang, Sydney get him. I tell you what, to keep it secret down in Sydney, he'd be great. They can do it pretty well. So Buddy Franklin going underneath GWS and going to Sydney. How they can afford to get him, I don't know what the price of living down there, but geez, to get someone for $10 million, it's got to be expensive. Yeah. But that's how it is, and it's with endorsements, it sounds like it's going to be a lot more than the amount of money that's actually thrown. So
we'll talk about that in a little more detail about 20 minutes to 9 later on in the show. Also coming up today, James O'Connor, ARU's finally run out of patience with him, and they've torn up his ARU contract. Darren Madigan, it was the final straw with him, and they've finally taken action.
Yeah, and they had to. I mean, it wasn't looking good for a long time, and I think everybody was getting to the point like we were, saying, when are you going to do something? I mean, you've got to do something to help this kid as well. And I think that's the other thing. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but they've taken their action. They've done what they must do as a governing body, but I think whoever's looking after him, they need to sort of take him aside and have that good old-fashioned American saying, intervention. Maybe that is needed here, and just get the kid back on track. I know Ewan McKenzie obviously must think a lot of him because he's publicly come out and said, mate, I want you to fight and come back. So we see where we go from there.
That'll be another discussion topic for us inside the first hour. And also, mate, the Dally M medals during the week. Ethan, Cooper Cronk edging out a very tight field in one of the closest races you'll ever see for a Dally M medal.
Yeah, it was interesting viewing that towards the end. Most people were sort of thinking Inglis and maybe even Cherry Evans before the award started, but Cooper, he's been the picture of consistency, and to get that number of votes in a side where you're in there with Cameron Smith and Billy Slater, who poll really well as well. It's really, well done to Cooper. He's a fantastic player. So.
Absolutely. We'll talk about all the rugby league in the second hour of the show. Stay with us. Kim Williams from the Mackay Cutters will be on the line at 9 o'clock as well to debrief the Intrust Super Cup Grand Final before we launch into the NRL. Darren Madigan, let's bring us all up to date with the latest news in sport.
Yeah, let's rock and roll. We've got a bit of cricket going on at the moment. Champions League 2020. We've had the first semi-final last night. Rajasthan Royals and the Chennai Super Kings. The Royals won by 14 runs. They go straight through to the final. Tonight we have the Trinidad and Tobago coming up against the Mumbai Indians in the second semi-final. The final will be played on October 6th, which is Sunday, so that'll be probably early morning, I think, our time there as well. As far as the netball is concerned, we had the third test in the Constellation Cup Series, which is a 5-test series against New Zealand. That was played in Adelaide last night. And finally, Australia just seemed to really get it all together in what was a relatively scrappy match, but nevertheless, the girls seem to be getting their combinations right and everything finally, which no doubt Lisa Alexander, the coach, will be very, very happy about. 58-50 was the final score, but they pretty much dominated the whole match. In fact, at three-quarter time, it was 47-34. So Nat Medhurst was absolutely on fire last night, playing an absolutely sensational match. Tell you too, we are in the postseason of the baseball. I know how much you love your baseball, Kev. Well, we're going to keep up to date with that over the next few weeks as we head towards the World Series. The wildcard games were during the week, and the Tampa Bay Rays got up over the Cleveland Indians, and the Pittsburgh Pirates defeated the Cincinnati Reds. So we've got coming up into the division series, the 4 series that will be played will be the Boston Red Sox and Tampa Bay Rays, Oakland Athletics and the Detroit Tigers in the American League, and in the National League, Atlanta Braves and Los Angeles Dodgers. And that match was actually on this morning just before we went to air, and the St. Louis Cardinals and the Pittsburgh Pirates as well there on that one. Moving on to tennis. Actually, tennis and golf this morning. Everybody seems to be in Beijing in China. But we've got we've got 2 500 series tournaments in the men, one in Beijing and one in Tokyo. But the big one where all the name players are, we've got Rafa Nadal defeating Fognini, Novak Djokovic, this is the battle for number 1 for year end, defeating Sam Querrey, Richard Gasquet defeating David Ferrer, and Thomas Berdych and John Isner battling it out there, and Thomas Berdych getting up over the big fella from America in the quarterfinals there. So Nadal, Djokovic, Gasquet, Berdych through to the semi-finals. In Japan, in Tokyo, Del Potro, Almagro, Dogic and Raonic all through to the semi-finals there. As far as the girls are concerned in Beijing, the female side of the draw there for the same tournament, we've got Agneta Radwanska defeating Angelique Kerber, Petra Kvitova defeated Li Na, that wouldn't have gone down well with the Chinese, Serena Williams defeating Caroline Wozniacki, and Elena Yankovic defeating Lucy Safarova. So all the winners there going through to the semi-final. Just bear with me a second as we bring up what's happening in the golf. At the moment, we have the President's Cup. In the men, play has been suspended due to inclement weather. Currently, the United States team leads the international team 3.5 to 2.5 points. As far as the ladies are concerned, they are in Beijing for the Rainwood LPGA Classic at the Pine Valley Golf Club in Beijing. And after 2 rounds, Jessica Corder leading the tournament at 14 under from Shansan Fang by 2 strokes, and Stacey Lewis from America sitting there on 12 under. Kari Webb tied for 8th after a second round. 68 is sitting at 7 under the card. Far as motorsport is concerned, we've got an awful lot going on this weekend. I'll just give you the results and we'll go through some news and everything later on this hour. But the Korean Grand Prix, which could be affected by a typhoon late on Sunday when they're actually racing. So we'll be waiting to see what the FIA does on that front. But after practice session 2, Lewis Hamilton and Seb Vettel leading the timesheets there from Nico Rosberg and Mark Webber. Daniel Ricciardo, 16th fastest after practice session 2. Now, I'll just give you the absolutely up-to-date qualifying report here. It's in progress for NASCAR in Kansas as we speak, and the last drivers are just doing their laps. We've got Kevin Harvick is on pole for the moment, or provisional pole. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. on the front row with him. Jimmy Johnson, Brad Keselowski, 3rd and 4th. The chase leader at the moment, Matt Kenseth, sitting on in 7th. And I can tell you, Marcus Ambrose at 25th at the moment. And that is, yes, they've just finished qualifying. So those places, unless there's any penalties there, won't be changing. Far as World Rally Championship in France is concerned, this is the return of Sebastien Loeb for what is probably his final event in the World Rally Championship period. He's only doing 4 events this year. He's already won a couple. He's just an amazing, amazing guy. 9 times in a row he's already won the championship. He won't be winning any championships this year, but he'd love to go out with a win in France. Neuville currently leading after the second day from Danny Sordo. Latvala, are sitting in 3rd, and Loeb currently in 4th. He can just jump in a car and be up there with the best of them just like that. He's amazing. The story of the year for me in motorsport, Robert Kubica, former Canadian Grand Prix winner in Formula 1, had most of his right arm severed in a terrible, terrible accident, has been progressively making a comeback over the last couple of years. He is leading by about 3.5 minutes in WRC2, and it really is one of the great stories of the year. In terms of IndyCar, they're racing in Houston this weekend. After practice session 1, Will Power and Scott Dixon currently leading the timesheets on that one as well. And that pretty much brings you up to date, Kevin, on everything that's happening around the world overnight.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for that, Darren. We'll go to a break here on Sports Scene. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
You, the one who just tossed that cigarette butt out the window of your car. Yeah, you. What? You think that cigarette will go out as soon as it hits the road? Tell me you're not that stupid. Look, too many bushfires start with a match or that bunch of smouldering leaves you just threw out the window. Let's prevent some fires for a change. Don't be a tosser. Use the ashtray in your car. A message from Queensland Fire and Rescue.
Celebrating 25 years of Radio Logan 101 FM. Tune in for more information.
Logan City's 101 FM.
It was heartbreaking when we first found out our baby boy had cataracts, but Vision Australia has been able to reassure us from the start. Sensitivity to glare, depth perception and visual fatigue are his daily challenges. Vision Australia has helped us to face these challenges to give Sam the best possible start in life.
Help Vision Australia support children like Sam. Call 1300 847466.
Bushfire season is here. Is your home in the line of fire? Bushfire not only threatens rural communities, if you live in a suburban or semi-rural area, you could also be at risk. Prepare yourself for the fire season. Clear the yard, get rid of leaves and twigs from the gutters, and know what to do if fire threatens your home. Remember, this year it could be you in the line of fire. For advice, contact your local fire station. This is a safety message from Queensland Fire and Rescue.
101 FM.
And now it's back to Saturday Sports Scene on 101 FM.
Welcome back to Sports Scene here on 101 FM. Kevin Braysher, Darren Madigan, Ethan James, Craig Crowley, all here with you guys now. During the week, there was a bit of unsettling news in regards to the Logan Thunder, Darren, but the good news is they've been resolved and they will continue out throughout this year, mate. What's the latest?
Yeah, they needed, as we reported last week, 150 grand by Friday evening before we went to air. Obviously, they must have gotten very close to that because a few hours after we went off the air, an announcement was made by Basketball Australia stating that they are in for the season by the looks of it. And what we'll do is we actually tried to get Jason Shaney, the coach, on the show this morning, but they're actually, you wouldn't believe it, they're actually flying for the 2-hour flight down south to play this weekend during the exact time that we're on air. So next week we hope to have Jason Shaney, the coach, on, and we'll pick his brains about what's been happening on that front, because obviously they've gone around and rattled the tin, so to speak, with businesses and individuals. They did a big social media campaign, which was very successful. But you, I, and everybody else knows that you can't survive doing that. So it'd be great to find out off Jason and off his contacts just what's happening as far as naming rights sponsors are concerned, and the long-term future of a club that we were here at Sports Scene at the very heart of when they first started and were getting into the league in the first place, when we used to have our basketball show, and Logan were a massive part of that. So it's great to be renewing that relationship again.
It's almost a little too convenient that they happen to be on the phone during the time of the show. It's almost like they're avoiding us. But it's fantastic news that they're still in the competition, mate. It would have been a massive loss, not only for the Logan community, but a massive loss for the WNBL.
Oh, look, it's huge. I mean, they're the last professional basketball team, men's or women's, in southeast Queensland. And we were going to have at one stage there a few years ago, as you might recall, where there weren't any capital cities left in the league. It was all a regional competition across the NBL, and it was the women that were actually propping everything up. Now, look, as far as the WNBL is concerned, Townsville have had their problems down through the years. They got themselves back on track. The men's side of things with Cairns and Townsville is well known. Cairns got themselves back on track. Townsville have a new community plan happening. The men's side of things are separating from, and that demerger, I think, was finalised during the week from Basketball Australia. So I guess they feel healthy enough now to actually go out on their own and, you know, chasing television deals and all that sort of stuff all by themselves. WNBL this year, I can tell you, will be televised on the national broadcaster on ABC. And they will be looking after that side of things. And look, I think the most important thing that we can do here at Sports Scene is just stress people, get on down to Logan Metro, watch the games, bums on seats, support your Logan Thunder, because they're your team. And, you know, we can only do so much here at the radio station by giving publicity, but you guys have got to get out there and support them. You know, if you live in the area, don't just sit at home and watch it on telly. Go out and watch the game live. It's a great experience.
Dead right, mate. Look, and they take on tonight. That gets underway. They take on Dandenong down there, down south, mate. How do you think they're going to go this weekend? Yeah, look, it's going to be tough. I mean, they've been going through an awful lot. But, look, I mean, my head would say Dandenong straight off the bat, but I think these guys are going to be, ladies, sorry, are going to be playing on emotion. So I'm actually going to tip them for a win first up, because these things that's the way these things often go. Right, mate. Well, look, we will, as we say, we'll get more contact with the Logan Thunder over the coming weeks. We'll continue to support that side over the coming times, and it's fantastic news that they've managed to get the funds together and that they will be a part of the competition this year, because it would have been a massive loss to not have them. Other things, we're going to move on now with the rest of the show. It's time now to talk a little bit of rugby union. We've given that a bit of a miss over the last couple of weeks as we've extended coverage of the AFL finals and the rest of it, but the big news this week, obviously, is James O'Connor, as he's sort of been in a lot of times over the recent weeks. This week, the Australian Rugby Union has they put their foot down. They've released him from his ARU contract, Craig. For a young man, 23 years old, a lot of repeated indiscretions. It was sort of the last step for the Australian Rugby Union, wasn't it, this decision? I think, yeah, look, what they've done is probably a real big favour to him by taking him back, knowing and probably taking
what is really important to him away from him, to make him realise what it is really worth. And, you know, it's a bit of a shame that a lot of people, you know, have the opportunity to play for their country and they tend to take it a little bit for granted. And, you know, this is something that a lot of young kids out there would be really, really giving their whatever to get a game. And he sort of takes it for granted. So he needs to, you know, they've taken it away from him, and now he's going to have to start all over again. And he's at an age now that he's got to start to learn from what's right from wrong. And he'll grow through this. He'll become a better person and hopefully become a really, really good footballer through it.
Absolutely. Darren, your thoughts?
We've got to remember, just giving a bit of clarity on this too, that the remaining test matches, he's not going to be part of that, but he's still registered as an Australian player. He can sign for the Force if they want him, and he'll be eligible for test selection next year. I'm just wondering whether maybe in a situation like this it may be smart to let a young man like him in the off-season go overseas, where he's not going to be able to get away with losing the plot so much. Because, I mean, here in Australia, there is that whole backup of being in a home environment. If you do the wrong thing, you can go home, all that sort of stuff. Whereas if you're playing in France or England and stuff like that, and you do the wrong thing by your contract, you're in a lot of trouble, and you don't have those easy fallbacks. I'm just wondering whether a few months of that might actually help him. What do you think, Craig?
Well, look, we've got to take a quick break here. Sorry, Darren, but we'll be right back very shortly right here on SportzScene. Hold with us.
Bushfire season is here. Is your home in the line of fire? Bushfire not only threatens rural communities, if you live in a suburban or semi-rural area, you could also be at risk. Prepare yourself for the fire season. Clear the yard, get rid of leaves and twigs from the gutters, and know what to do if fire threatens your home. Remember, this year it could be you in the line of fire. For advice, contact your local fire station. This is a safety message from Queensland Fire and Rescue.
Did you know a will is a living document you should update as your life changes? Turning 18, marriage, divorce, birth of a child or grandchild, and purchasing a property are all times you need to make sure you have a valid will. To help you find out more about enduring powers of attorney and wills, visit www.pt.qld.gov.au for more information.
101 FM.
You're listening to Saturday Sports Scene on your station, 101 FM.
Welcome back to Sports Scene here on 101 FM. 28 minutes past 8, the next Fresh News update coming up at the top of the hour. Just a reminder, this Thursday's 101 FM monthly movie is Diana, starring Naomi Watts. One low admission price gets you a delicious morning tea and a great first release movie from 9:30 at sponsor Hyperplex Cinemas Logan Home. So if you want to go down there and check out the new Diana movie starring Naomi Watts, head on down there, 9:30 at Hyperplex Cinemas Logan Home. Kevin Braysher, Darren Madigan, Ethan James, Craig Crowley, all still here with you. And joining us right here at SportsScene for the first time, hopefully of many, Mr. Chris Chard. He's from the raw.com.au, Rugby League Player magazine, also works down there with the Tweed Seagulls. Mate, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kev. Good to be here, mate. That Diana movie, I hear the ending's pretty obvious for that one, but, you know, it should be a good look, mate.
Spoiler alerts for that one, just by the way.
Sorry.
He's 10 seconds, he's already cracking jokes. I like this where it's going, mate. But, yeah, absolutely. Welcome to the show this morning. We'll dive straight back into the James O'Connor discussion as we're having. The Australian Rugby Union have decided that they have released him from his ARU contract. He's ineligible for selection for the rest of this year with the Wallabies. He's still able to be picked up by an Australian Rugby Union club if they want him. The problem there is a lot of the clubs don't seem to want him at the moment. Overseas and Rugby League are other potential options for him. Rugby League man, Chris, I'll throw straight to you since you're in the room now. If you're a Rugby League club, say the Broncos, the Titans, or whoever, would you want James O'Connor at the moment?
You've got to have him for his brand, don't you? I mean, he's mucked up enough times. He'd fit right in. But, no, seriously, I've heard the Bulldogs are sniffing around. Bulldogs need a fullback, obviously, with Benny Barber gone, and I've heard him and Kevin Locke are potentially in the circle. But James O'Connor could be more trouble than he's worth. Played his junior stuff at Parramatta as well, though. They let him go because he's too small. But, yeah, look... it'd be a hard one. I mean, he comes with a lot of baggage, doesn't he?
Fair bit of baggage indeed. Ethan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's as Chris said, it's a bit of a gamble really to take someone like James O'Connor. But I mean, he's only young. Hopefully, you'd like to think he will learn. Maybe he'll go overseas, realise how good he had it in Australia. and then come back a better player, more rounded individual, or maybe he'll go overseas and keep playing up and we'll never see him again.
What about the Wallabies though now? Like, they've been struggling as of late in recent times, struggling against South Africa, against everybody essentially. What does it do to them to have to now cut another player? Is this another thing that's going to hurt them more, or does the loss of the disruptive influence potentially help them? What do we think?
Yeah, look, sorry, mate.
Jump in.
It's interesting because he's gone. It's a pretty big fall from grace under Robbie Deans, who's obviously playing 5'8" there. So to go from 5'8" to straight out of the squad, it's a pretty big step, and you'd think it'd have to be all hands on deck for the Wallabies at the moment, wouldn't you?
It's going to always be interesting, what they've done here, because I reckon what they're trying to attack is the culture side of the rugby union. Now, for whatever reason, it's been up and down through certain players, and they had to make a stand. It's as simple as that. And hopefully, is it all about James O'Connor, or is it about the whole Australian rugby union? And that's what I see it as being. I said, instead of just pussyfooting around with it, they've made a statement nice and early and gone, right, we're going to do this. He's gone. He's not out of the picture, but anyone else wants to step out of line, it can come back to you as well. So I reckon what they're trying to do, and, he's probably, you can't keep on going the way he's going because it is bad for your culture, it's bad for the sport. So they're making an example of him, and it really puts it out to the rest of the players. And I think that's really important. And if you've got a winning culture and a good culture in the club, it's amazing how success follows after that. And I think you'll find that sort of thing is what they're trying to achieve. That's what I think.
Darren, I'll go to you lastly for a last word just on the James O'Connor situation. Where does he go next? Does he fish around for a club at Super Rugby and try and force his way back in favour with the Wallabies, or does he head overseas for big money or head over to Rugby League? What do you think?
Look, I think right now the problem with James Conner is he's got to get his life sorted out. I think we're all talking about him going on what he's going to do from the sporting angle. He's obviously got problems. He's got to get them sorted out first. I mean, it's all very well and good to go and chase some money somewhere, but he's just taking the problem somewhere else. I mean, he's got to get himself sorted out. And then I think that, it's obvious Ewan McKenzie wants him from some of the things that he said earlier this week. So I'd like to see him get his head together, maybe even take some time off and then come back and play test match football again.
Darren, I'll put it to you this, mate. How much of a comparison do you draw with this and Ben Cousins? In the AFL line. Obviously, the situation was Ben. Obviously, a lot more drugs involved in it. That's not the situation here, I hope. But the fact of the matter is, Ben Cousins was given another opportunity at Richmond, and I thought it was good for not only him, but I thought it was good for the code, and it was good for the Richmond Football Club. And it really stamped a thing, and you're a Richmond supporter, so you know this. It actually was good for the whole makeup of Richmond Football Club because Richmond gave a battler an even chance. Can you see a parallel here at all?
A little bit. Obviously, the Ben Cousins it was probably even more serious given what was involved with the drugs and that. But you're absolutely spot on. The Tigers were able to take advantage of that situation. It was great for both parties. I think the situation with Ben is that when he's around football and in a good football environment, he's okay. And as we've seen since he left Richmond and retired from the game, his life has been quite up and down. And I think that's where your parallels are. I mean, with James, when he's away from the game, his head's not in a good place. That's got to be fixed. And that's something that's really football people aren't qualified to do. And I mean, you can't have him around footy 12 months of the year. There's going to be times when he's not around, and that's when he's going to do the wrong thing, even if he doesn't want to. So that's why I'm saying he's got to get some help. He's got to get it sorted out. I'd like to see him take some time off and get that side of his life sorted and then come back and play football.
The game this weekend, Argentina up against Australia. Australia heading all the way over there to Argentina. It'll be tomorrow morning, 8:40 a.m. our time. What do we think? Can the Wallabies bounce back and get a win in this one? They really need to, don't they?
Yeah, look, I mean, the RGs, unfortunately for us, though, are getting closer to a win.
Sure.
I mean, they're looking pretty good, and they were unlucky over in Perth. I think they got dudded and a little bit shocked by the horrid conditions they had in Perth. It was rainy and cold, and they just didn't look like they were into it. But they came very close, so I think it could be a massive danger game. And Link McKenzie's got to be. He's got to be starting to sweat a bit. He's lucky he's not from New Zealand anyway. So.
What about Will Genia, mate? There's been plenty of pressure on him. He's been dropped in recent times. He's back in the starting side this week. What about him? He needs to perform this week, doesn't he? Somebody.
He obviously does, Kev. He obviously does. But yeah, in terms of the structure, like they're saying, there's a million of us in the studio. No one would buy on that. But anyway, but yeah, in terms of the Wallabies, as Chris sort of said, like we sort of expected Ewan McKenzie to come in and everything to sort of turn to gold, but it hasn't quite happened, and the combinations are still sort of building. So Will Guinea is definitely a massive part of the combination.
That's it. Fingers crossed they can get it right. They take on Argentina. The other game this weekend, of course, South Africa up against New Zealand. We'll take a quick break here on SportzScene. We'll be right back with a little bit of motorsport news. Stay with us.
It was heartbreaking when we first found out our baby boy had cataracts, but Vision Australia has been able to reassure us from the start. Sensitivity to glare, depth perception and visual fatigue are his daily challenges. Vision Australia has helped us to face these challenges to give Sam the best possible start in life.
Help Vision Australia support children like Sam. Call 1300 84 7466.
This is our home, this is our place. Whatever we do for tomorrow. Driving around, don't use the ground. Do the right thing, use the right bin. Keep Queensland beautiful. Keep it up, do the right thing. Keep Queensland beautiful. Keep it up, do the right thing.
101 FM.
You're listening to Saturday Sports Scene on the voice of Logan City, 101 FM.
Welcome back to Sports Scene here on a 101 FM. Kevin Braysher, Craig Crowley, Ethan James, Chris Child. Everybody's in here today. Let's get into the rest of it now. Darren Madigan, bring us up to date. What's happening in the world of motorsport this week? Of course, Bathurst 1000 is next week. We'll give that plenty of coverage next week on the show. But, mate, what's happening at the moment?
Indeed. We'll make sure the Tin Tops get a good go next week. The Formula One Korean Grand Prix, just been checking up on what's happening with that typhoon. It looks like it's easing a bit around the place. So hopefully the Korean Grand Prix won't be affected by that typhoon. And as we mentioned earlier, practice session 2 results. They go into qualifying later on today. Lewis Hamilton, Sebastian Vettel, Nico Rosberg and Mark Webber are your top 4. Felipe Massa working his rear end off there, trying to impress to get a drive somewhere for 2014, and Daniel Ricciardo sitting in 16th spot at the moment. The rumours still abounding, and they're really very, very strong, as we broke last week regarding Rubens Barrichello. There is even a chance that he may possibly race at the last race this year in Brazil, possibly for Sauber, bringing quite a bit of sponsorship money with him, and that would be greeted rather nicely by Bernie Eccleston, because not having a Brazilian on the grid, which is what we're looking at possibly for next season, is almost unthinkable in the sport of top wheel open reeler racing, whether it be in Formula One or even in the old days in IndyCar. They bring quite a lot of sponsorship money to the sport, if nothing else. So South Americans play a big role in the sport. Also, it looks like Sauber are confirming that they will be powered by Ferrari in next year's brand new Formula One. For those of you who aren't aware, we go turbos next year, turbo V6 1.6 litre engines, and a completely different world in the world of Formula One starting for the 2014 season. Heavier drivers are pushing at the moment for a Formula One rule change to increase the mandatory minimum weight of cars. Having said that, when we talk about heavier drivers, there's only a few kilos in it, but that's what some of these guys are talking about. So it really affects more the taller drivers, guys like Mark Webber, who is now leaving the sport. Practice for the Korean Grand Prix we just mentioned. As far as your standings are concerned, so far as you would be guessing, Sebastian Vettel leading the championship comfortably from Fernando Alonso, Lewis Hamilton, Kimi Räikkönen and Mark Webber. Daniel Ricciardo sitting in 14th spot at the moment. Qualifying has finished in Kansas for NASCAR. On pole position we have Kevin Harvick from Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Jimmy Johnson and Brad Keselowski, and Marcus Ambrose down around 25th spot. Standings for the chase. For those of you who aren't aware, it's an unusual system in NASCAR. They race for quite a number of races during the season. They come down to the final 10 weeks, which is almost like a final system like we have in football. And the guy who finishes on top, when they reset all the points with 10 races to go, after those 10 races, the guy who finishes on top is the champion for the year. Matt Kenseth, currently leading the championship. I really, really hope he holds on to this and wins this, even though I'm a Jeff Gordon fan. The reason we have the chase in the first place was because Matt Kenseth won the championship years ago after winning just the one race, and everybody was up in arms and jumped up and down, even though he was the most consistent driver for the year. And the next year, we had this silly chase system. So if he wins this year, it will be one of the great stories of redemption in motorsport. So I really hope he gets up. In France, Neuville leading Sordo and Latvala, and Sebastian Loeb on his final rally, for his career, most likely, because he's heavily involved in GT racing, and next year he'll have a full program of world touring cars with, I believe, Citroën, the people that he's been involved with of rallying for so many years. And Robert Kubica, one of the great stories of sports stories of the year, one of the great motorsport stories of all time, leading the World Rally Championship 2 division by about 3.5 minutes. So he's really settled into rallying very, very well. In Houston, Will Parr and Scott Dixon leading the practice sheets there in the race in Houston. And I can tell you too, in MotoGP, no races this weekend, but Marc Marquez is looking ever increasing like he is going to win the championship in his rookie year, from Jorge Lorenzo, Danny Pedrosa, and Valentino Rossi, who has had a bit of an Indian summer as well, as we like to say. So that's pretty much what's going on in the world of motorsport. Next weekend, Bathurst, the big weekend, we'll probably have all the time handed over to that, because we'll go through all your pairings and who's likely to do what and everything else on that front. Kevin?
Thank you very much for that, Darren. We'll take a break here on Sports Scene. We come back, we'll wrap up last week's AFL Grand Final and discuss the season that was. Stay with us.
Life. Life is for living, so live it. Life. Life is for giving, so give it. Giving blood is cool, needing it isn't. Red Cross. Give a little. Life is for living. Life is for giving. Help save lives. Please give blood.
You didn't know, did you? To produce pork, ham, and bacon products, most mother pigs endure lives of misery in factory farms. Please, don't buy into cruelty. Help Animals Australia end this abuse forever. Call 1300-HELP-THEM or visit animalsaustralia.org for a free information pack.
Do you feel breathless after climbing a flight of stairs? Has walking to your car become an endurance event? You might have lung disease, even in its early stages. Visit www.lungfoundation.com.au to complete the lung health checklist, or call the Australian Lung Foundation on 1-800-654-301. Catch lung disease before it catches up with you.
Remember When with Richard Davey, bringing you golden musical memories from the 1920s to the late 50s, every Sunday from 1 p.m. on 101 FM.
101 FM.
Now it's back to Saturday Sports Scene on 101 FM.
Welcome back to Sports Scene here on 101 FM. 16 minutes to 9. Your next fresh news update coming up at the top of the hour. Just a reminder, this month's 101 FM monthly movie is Diana, starring Naomi Watts. One low admission price gets you a delicious morning tea and a great first release movie from 9:30 a.m. at sponsor Hyperplex Logan Cinemas. So head down there if you want to check out that movie. Now it's time to talk some AFL here on the show. Kevin Braysher, Darren Madigan, Chris Chard, Ethan James, Craig Crowley. It's a mouthful this morning. Plenty of people in the studio. Let's talk about last week's AFL Grand Final. Craig, the Hawthorn Hawks, of course, wrapping up the premiership. Their 11th AFL premiership, mate. What did you think? It was a well-deserved premiership after what was a dominant season from them, really.
Yeah, well, it's always good to see, your most well-performed side win the grand final. I think it's fair and just, not taking anything away from Freo. I think what they brought to the table was really, really good. They brought they were innovative in what they're trying to do. They strangle sides. And as we were speaking a little bit off air about, it wasn't a pretty game of football. The entertainment was probably in the closest of the game, and they did have their opportunities to win it. Some very poor skill errors, kicking a goal, not having the opportunity to run out on the MCG in September at that particular time. Don't know how the pressure sits, and there is reports that the wind always tends to swirl around there. But that's probably making excuses. The professional footballers had the opportunity to kick the goals, and if they had have kicked the goals, it might have been a different situation. But kudos to Hawthorn. I thought they were great. They were the best side all year and well and truly deserved to win.
You talked about the inability to kick straight. That especially hurt Freo, especially in that first half, mate. It was halfway through the second quarter before they kicked a goal.
Yeah, well, and it was documented too. It's not the first time that's happened to Freo, so they've been kept goalless to Hawthorn in previous games. So, yeah, look, everyone knows in any sport or any football, the scoreboard pressure is always really important. That's the most pressure you can probably put under anyone, and they had their opportunities and didn't actually do it. So, and there was a few players down in their game, and obviously that took their toll. But their midfield was good, and which is what we spoke about. The Fives, Monday, they were terrific. Like I said before, the game didn't reach any huge heights, but once again, the intensity of a grand final and the pressure and under over 100,000 people at the MCG, it'd be a hard one to deal with.
Darren, I know you're one for history and the rest, and it would have been nice to see Freo notch up their first flag, but well and truly deserved win there for Hawthorn, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And as I mentioned last week, I mean, history's a cruel mistress, and what was going to happen if Hawthorn had a loss would have seen history not looking kindly on the core group of this team, and also the coach, Alistair Clarkson, who we all know is a great coach. He's a very, very good human chess master on the field, but you got to have the results, and this one grand final result is the difference between him being regarded as a good coach with a great team in a very good era that didn't quite live up to potential to actually living up to that potential and getting his premierships and being regarded as a great coach now. And that's the difference. And if you take a look at what happened last weekend, you now have a coach in Fremantle who has lost 3 grand finals and drawn one. And, you got to wonder, next year, I mean, Ross Lyon isn't the sort of bloke you let it play on him too much, but he goes into next year trying to stay within that premiership window. I think Freo will be back again. I'd like to see, from a sentimental point of view, Pavlich get his premiership at some stage, but sometimes that doesn't happen in careers. We know that. But Hawthorn were the strongest team all year. They've been fantastic. As you know, I've been on the bandwagon for months, and I'm very, very happy to see them go. And quite frankly, if you kick 1-6 by half-time in what are pretty good weather conditions, then, you don't deserve to win.
Craig, what do you think for Freo for next season? Where are they heading? Are they still on the way up?
Very hard to say, Kevin, on the basis for saying that is everyone knows that the second year is always the hardest. You should try to come back and emulate what you did the year before, and a lot of sides that have won grand finals tend not to be significant in their next year. Freo, I suppose, in that regard, I thought they were, during the course of the year, were coached extremely well, so if they can pick up on their personnel, maybe have someone taking a little bit more of the pressure off Pavlich, having a few more goal-scoring opportunities because they've got the ability to win the ball through the midfield. They've just got to obviously convert and have someone who's going to be able to do that. That's going to be interesting. It really now, and we've heard a lot about it already after the grand final, but, the trade situation is going to be really important, what they pick up in the draft, who they've got in their pipeline to become, them players, who they lose. It's all in the pipeline in that regard. So, they're just going to pick up and they'll learn by it, no doubt.
I can tell you, too, just on the trade thing, we've only had three completed so far in this trade period, this free agent trade period, and we've got Eddie Betts has joined the Crows as a restricted free agent. That's a huge loss to Carlton. We've got to Port Adelaide, we've got Matt White from Richmond, he heads to Alberton, and Colin Sylvia joins the Dockers, as you were just talking about, Craig, with Fremantle as an unrestricted free agent. He joins from Melbourne. So there are 3 so far. That's apart from obviously the big name deals that were done during the week, and especially Buddy.
What do we think? Brian Lake picking up the Norm Smith medal. What do we think? Deserved?
Oh, look, It's not only that, obviously very hungry for a premiership after being so close with the Western Bulldogs, but I think that the great thing, especially in the environment we're in now, where the AFL have got a draft situation, they've got trade, all that, it's great to see Hawthorn win a premiership with 6 recycled players from other clubs. Obviously, there's Josh Gibson, there's Peter Burgoyne, there's Brett Guerra, David Hale. It's pleasing to see that sort of thing, and obviously he was terrific. I think a lot had to do with his last quarter, how important he was in that last quarter, how much he saved the game. But a worthy winner, and obviously very happy. But I think he would have been very happy just to take home 1 medal, not 2.
Darren, what do you think, mate? And also some other standouts for the day for you.
Yeah, look, fantastic. I mean, Lakey, he's obviously on Pavlich. I mean, the tough job. But just to see him through, I'm really happy to see David Hale get a medal too, obviously with the Gold Coast connection. But he's a nice bloke. I think we've all, those of us involved in footy down there have met him, and I've had the pleasure of interviewing him a few times. It was great to see him, after leaving North Melbourne, just, get to a team where he was going to win a premiership if he got into the right situation, and that's finally happened. I think Freo have some good players in there that are really going to come through. Everybody's talking about Fife. I mean, he's, they've got to make sure they hold on to these guys. I think Craig was spot on when he said the second year is the most difficult. I'd like to see, I think Freo will still be a top 4 team next year. I wouldn't be surprised to see him still around abouts. I'm a little worried that that old Ross Lyon, he doesn't have a lot of success when he gets to that final day in September, but I'm sure his time will come. But Roughhead was good, Gunston obviously kicking goals, and my pick for the Norm Smith, Hodge, was also excellent as well. He played a captain's game, was good to see. Cyril did his job, but as I said earlier, you can't kick 1-6 to half time and expect to win a big game of football, and really, they just didn't come out gunning like Hawthorn did.
Dead right. You're listening to Sports Scene here on 101 FM, 8 minutes to 9. Your next fresh news update coming up at the top of the hour.
Yeah, just a question on that to Craig. He's the self-appointed AFL guru here on the panel.
Of course.
No, but just on Freo and their tactics. I mean, they play a sort of different style of footy, the way they flood the game and try and bunch it up and slow it down. Looking to next year, can they rely on that to do the same thing again, or do you reckon they need to add a bit more in, or where do they go to from here?
Well, there's 2 really important areas you're talking about. Obviously, as a group, how they all work in the third of the ground, and they continually do that. But what you'll tend to see is all the AFL coaches now and all the AFL teams will be trying to negate that in some way, and how we get through it. Do we kick the ball long? Do we try to get over the cluster? Do we play players deep and take the chance on that? So, look, yes, they have to be innovative. They just can't stand flat-footed, because I know the other AFL clubs will now be starting to try to dissect that as much as they possibly can. The other side of it, talking in the tactics, and we've got to commend the guy with a great last name that he's got, but Ryan Crowley, his job on Sam Mitchell was absolutely terrific. And I reckon he'd done the job obviously extremely well, but he'd done it with a lot more... what's the best way? He wasn't in their face. He actually beat the player. He wasn't getting attacked by the opposition at the end of the game, sort of thing. So obviously he's done and played a tremendous game. And, to keep Sam Mitchell, I think, down to 15 possessions, where he normally, I think he averages around about 24, 25.
He had 38 in the preliminary final.
Well, exactly right. So obviously he was important. I thought he would have gone to Hodge, and, if you release one's going to go. And obviously Mitchell was quiet, but Hodge still got a lot of the ball. But he... And this is, we were talking off air about the Dally M and the Brownlow and about who wins medals. Here's a guy who's absolutely, and here's an opportunity. Does Crowley win the Norm Smith if Freo win because of what he actually brought to the table? He doesn't go out there to get kicks himself. He does his team structured thing and just tag all day. And I thought he was tremendous, and I think he rated pretty highly in the votes anyway. So, the way of tactics, obviously there's another aspect of the tactics that they've got to work to and see if they can beat.
Yeah, the other thing too with Freo, you can get away with what they do for a season before everybody catches on, which is the whole defensive press that they're so very, very good at. but you've got to be kicking winning scores, and it's not something that they're great at. They're very good at stopping other sides from kicking goals, but, you know, as we go into season 2014, every other team in the league is going to figure that out. And they've got to be able to start kicking winning scores. And we know with Pavlich out during the season how much it hurt them when they didn't have that focal point up front to kick to. They've got to kick winning scores, and they don't do that well. That's what has to change for 2014 for the Fremantle Football Club.
We'll leave that part of the discussion there, guys, because there was one other pretty big story that broke during the week. There was a lot of talk that Lance Buddy Franklin was heading to the GWS Giants. It looked like it was signed, sealed, delivered. All of a sudden, in come the Sydney Swans, and he's heading there on a 9-year, $10 million deal potentially at this stage. Chris, I'll ask you, mate, what's your opinion on a 9-year deal?
Oh, mate, I can't get a 9-month deal. Yeah, look, it's pretty outrageous, isn't it? I mean, you know, it's a bit like, you know, going from GWS to the Swans. It's like his parents are going to take him out to McDonald's and they take him out to Ribs and Rumps instead. It's fantastic. It does.
You get a lot of ribs for that amount of money. Wow.
It's very interesting that, you know, the Swans have that famous policy. I probably can't say that one on radio, can I? The no D-heads policy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're allowed to have one, aren't they? Because it's plural, that. So they can have one in their team, and I think Buddy's going to fill that quota quite nicely for them.
It's no homers. We're allowed to have one. I thought you were getting that. Craig, Craig, tell us what you think, mate.
Well, it's, you know, obviously, it's, you know, from all reports, it's quite a great contract, but through his endorsements, he's probably out to make a little bit more out of that as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all pans out. And, you know, I'm thinking to myself, when do the AFL actually get a time to have a holiday? You're thinking, oh, the grand final's done and dusted, and bang, within a week, it's all happening again. You know, there's just no break in it. But look, it's something that, well, if you saw the interview after the grand final, you can more or less say, you know, he was going, he was crying, I think 40 minutes afterwards. And it was an indicator saying, say goodbye, boys, I'm off. And you look, it's a great coup by the Sydney Swans to get him. I don't know if the AFL should have intervened to try to keep him in GWS for the bigger picture, because I thought, you know, if you got him at the GWS and got him involved to fast track them a little bit quicker, would have been better for the competition. Whether it makes a big monster a lot bigger, I don't know, because Sydney Swans with the likes of Kurt Tippett, now Buddy Franklin, and the unfortunate man in this who probably played pretty well is a bloke who played at Southport, a guy called Jesse White. He actually, I thought, performed really, really well in the last probably 6 or 7 games.
Yeah.
Now he's on the outer to make space. Mumford's gone.
Yep.
He's going to GW. Look, it all goes around, I suppose. There's only a certain amount of cash in the kitty, so it's really just all over the shop, really.
I'm glad you mentioned Kurt Tippett there and that, Craig. There was a lot of uproar last year in terms of their, you know, the salary cap exemptions that they get for cost of living there in Sydney, mate. This is, of course, just intensified it with Lance Franklin. Darren, what's your read on that whole situation?
Yeah, they're going to lose those things. And look, I think it's a joke anyway. I mean, they've won premierships. They should have had them gone ages ago. This business of costing too much to live in Sydney. Are they kidding me? Some of these guys are on huge amounts of money. If they can't afford to live on that, yeah, it's just stupid. As far as Lance is concerned, it's a bell curve contract. What I mean by that is it'll start off not as big as people think at the start, the first few years. After a few years, it'll be some quite huge money, and then it will gradually peter out in the last few years of the contract. Also, on the behavioural side of things, there was talk at the time, early on in the reporting of this, that the reason he didn't take up the GWS part of the reason that he didn't take up the GWS contract is there was a fairly draconian behavioural issues in that contract as well, which obviously they weren't saying to him at the Swans. And finally, he reckons he wants to go for a premiership. Well, I think he's more likely over a period of time to get premierships out of GWS with what they're doing, possibly than the Swans.
Craig, last words on this one?
But it's not a big one. It's just, you know, over the 9-year period, a lot of people who are, you know, 9s and, okay, that's a career. But he's already played 9 years. It's unheard of to a player to go out and play 18 years of senior football at that level, regardless of its league, union, whatever the case may be. How hard that's going to be on his body. If he can fulfill it, it's going to be very interesting to see how far he goes.
Just on that, can GWS sign James O'Connor? Is it?
Might need to. No one else seems to want him at the moment. We'll take a break here on SportsScene. We've got to go to the news. When we come back, it'll be a big rugby league second hour of the show. Kim Williams from the Mackay Cutters will be on the phone with us, and we'll preview the NRL Grand Final, the Roosters up against Manly. So make sure you stay with us right here, 101 FM, your local station. Stay with us. Welcome back to SportsScene here on a 101 FM, 6 minutes past 9, taking you into the second hour of the show. Plenty of rugby league coming your way in the second hour of the show. We'll do a full preview of the NRL Grand Final a little bit later, but right now it's time to Super Cup. Joining us on the line, head coach of the Mackay Cutters, the Intrust Super Cup premiers for 2013, Mr. Kim Williams. Welcome to the show, mate.
Hey, thanks, boys. How are you?
Well, excellent, mate. It's good to have you back on the show. Of course, we had you last week heading into the grand final. It was a cracking game of football down there against the East Tigers over at Ipswich. 27-20. You eventually got home in that game, mate. In this game, we talked about it leading into the game. You guys, probably the underdogs coming up against an East Tigers team stacked full of Melbourne players. You had to travel a long way coming in. Lots of support there for East Tigers. Yet your boys managed to overcome it all, mate. Just tell us about the feeling afterwards after that game and just what it meant to the boys to overcome all that and to win on grand final day.
Yeah, it was one of the best feelings I've ever had, that's for sure. It was probably made even a bit more special with a couple of events that happened during the year, and in particular the passing of Alex Elisala. So I could see some of his closest mates in that team. It was almost released for them, and I think it was pretty overwhelming at the time, and it's probably taken up to now for it to really sink in.
You mentioned that with Alex Elisala, mate. A real special moment in that was when Michael Morgan scored that try and pointed up to him. It's obvious that his memory was very strong in the minds of your players.
Yeah, it was. Michael Morgan and Anthony Mitchell probably more so than anyone, and it was great for those guys both to score a try and Anthony to get the well-deserved man of the match. And it just all panned out. We probably couldn't have scripted that back half of the year any better, and in honouring Alex and his family, and it was just fantastic. A bit of a fairy tale come true.
Absolutely, mate. And you mentioned Anthony Mitchell there. Of course, he was named man of the match. Tell us about your thoughts on his display and what he means to this squad.
Yeah, he's, although he hasn't got the C next to his name, in a lot of respects, he's our captain. He does a lot of the talking where, Jardine just leads by example through his actions, and he's a fantastic leader too. But Ant tends to do the talking, before the match and at half-time, and I know he's a pest on the field. He never shuts up there either. So he's really natural leader. It wasn't the plan to play him for 80 minutes, but he was going so well, and we had a couple of other injuries during the game that sort of changed the interchange system a bit. But I was glad I didn't take him off in the end. He played 80 minutes of high-quality footy and was one of the differences in the two teams.
Mate, in that game, East Tigers jumped out to a bit of a lead early in the game. They started really well, but your boys managed to fight back and stay with them in the rest of it. What did you tell the boys at half-time coming into that, and how to approach that second half?
Yeah, well, I stated during the week that if we were close with 15 or 20 to go, that we felt we could finish over the top of them. And I think, in the first half, there were signs of that. They had a really strong wind behind their back, and although they played some really good footy, we just managed to defend, and we got those two quick tries and got our nose in front. But even though they scored just before half-time and went in at the break, we were really confident. We felt we were fitter than them. We had the wind in the second half, and we just wanted that victory. I think maybe a little bit more than them. I don't know, but there was certainly no major concerns at half time that we could do the job. Everyone in there.
Yeah, and just on the end of the match, Kim, it was 20-all with about 10 minutes to go, and then Matt Minto slotted that field goal for the Cutters. How were you on the sideline at that point? Obviously pretty nervous.
Yeah, we'd sent a message out to look for the field goal, the plan to do it on and tackle. But I thought Matty Minto all final series has been outstanding and had a really composed head for such a young fella. He's only 22, and he's got us around the paddock all year and done a great job. So, I think Torvalolo took the run before it and beat about 9 men and got a quick play the ball. So it was just the perfect time for Matty. I was very confident we could defend that lead for the last 6 or 7 minutes, and in the end we were lucky enough to get a late try. But yeah, I thought it was a great play from Matty, and probably shows where he's at as a footballer at the moment. Very mature and highly skilled, and I think he's ready to have a go at the next level.
Oh, Kim, it's Chris here. First of all, congratulations, mate, on the victory.
Yeah, thanks.
No worries. There's been a bit of talk lately about the Intrust Super Cup champions next year playing the VB New South Wales Cup champions before the NRL Grand Final. Would you be in for that, mate? Does that sound like something that interests you? You got the chance?
Yeah, mate, I reckon that's a great idea, and there was a bit of a push for a national reserve grade, but in all respects, you've got that already. We're just the Northern Conference up here in New South Wales, or the Southern Conference. So to bring them together in a grand final, I think is a great thing. And I think the plans are in the future to maybe expand that competition. And PNG are coming into the Intrust Super Cup next year, and I know places like WA and some of the country areas in New South Wales would love to get a crack in the New South Wales Cup. So, in the future, who knows, it could become something similar to the NFL and the baseball, the basketball in America, where you have separate conferences who come together at finals time, and maybe it becomes top four, from each of those divisions. And, I just think it is truly the second tier. It is above the Holden Cup, the under-20, so I think to bring it together on a national level is fantastic. It gives it more exposure, and it gives some more bragging rights, I guess, Queensland, New South Wales.
Now you're listening to Sports Scene here on 101 FM. Kevin Braysher, Darren Madigan, Chris Chard, Ethan James, Craig Crowley, massive panel here today. We are on the phone with grand final winning coach from the Mackay Cutters, Mr. Kim Williams, talking about last week's Intrust Super Cup grand final and all things QRL.
Yeah, just on that grand final that will be happening next year, how do you approach that as coach? Because you'll be in a situation where you win a premiership in the competition, you have your celebrations and that sort of stuff, then you have to prepare for another match and another final for another piece of silverware. How do you handle that how would you handle that as coach? Would it be difficult, or?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's really important that the prestige of the Intrust Super Cup and the New South Wales Cup isn't diminished by this. So, I think as a coach, you still initially do all your planning around playing, in that particular Intrust Super Cup grand final, and then the following week, I think, is an addition. You probably hold off on your Mad Monday celebrations and put them off for a week, but I think that's the key, that as coaches and as administrators in the Queensland Cup, make sure that's still the number one goal. It doesn't lose its prestige. Everything's focused around that. And then that national grand final, if you want to call it that, it's seen as an addition and a bonus. And, I guess a little bit like the World Club Challenge, if you view it that way, that you've won your own thing, and then this is something on top of it for a bit of extra prestige, I guess.
Yeah, look, it's interesting you bring up the World Club Challenge. I remember in the early days, one of the hardest things with the World Club Challenge for the Australian teams was actually getting to England. There's a famous story after winning the 91 grand final. Gus Gould couldn't find any of his team because Mark Dwyer, they were all in the pubs, and you get a few together and the other guys would be in the other pubs, and they'd end up taking a reserve grade team over because they were too busy celebrating the grand final win. So, look, it would be a fair task there, but I think the NRL grand final is such a big stage to get that time on TV. I think it'd be a great thing especially for the ISC, just to show what a strong competition it is these days.
Yeah, definitely, and I think we've talked about it to the players here, and they all love the idea, and it's the thought of playing at ANZ Stadium in front of 90-odd thousand spectators. It might be something they only ever get to do once in their life. So from the players' point of view, they love the idea. And from a coaching point of view, I'm certainly excited about it, and I wish it came a year early and we could do it this year.
G'day, Kim. How are you? Congratulations on your win. Craig here. Just wondering how you're feeling, late in that second half. A bit of a fracas started, and your captain runs in and drops his shoulder charge. So he was obviously put on report. Did you think at any stage he could be sitting beside you?
Oh, I didn't actually, and I didn't really see what happened first. It was just so much going on there. But then up on the video screen, they showed it a few times, and look, I think you've got to do something really bad to get Simbin in the grand final, and I was quite disappointed Liam Taylor got sin bin for what was viewed as a professional foul. And, looking back on the video, I don't think he held him down extra long. Penalty, yes, but not a sin bin in the grand final. So I think the decision there with Jardine was the same. We'll cop the penalty there. That was fair enough. There's probably an argument to say, well, they threw the ball at us first, so they instigated it. So why isn't it our penalty? And I would have been extremely disappointed if he got sin bin for that. It probably wasn't what you want from your captain at that time, but what you do want from your players is sticking up for each other, and we just weren't going to be bullied around by them. I think that was their possible ledge, getting us in the forward, so our boys were just willing to stand up. And if your captain's leading the way there, then I'm not going to argue that point with him. But maybe lucky to get away with not a sin bin, but like I say, in grand finals, I reckon you give a little bit more leeway, and I'm glad they adjudicated that the correct way.
Mate, I just want to ask you about next year, mate. 2014 for the Mackay Cutters. You'll be the reigning premiers. What does next year hold for your club and your team?
Yeah, well, we want to get better as a club and as a team, and my aim as a coach is trying to help each individual get better again. And a couple of new players coming in, hoping we'll freshen up the squad again. And our biggest threat to us is ourselves, and getting too comfortable, and not complacency, but getting comfortable and thinking we don't have to work as hard as we did this year. That's the biggest challenge from a coaching point of view. So, the obvious goal is back-to-back. Every coach is aimed to win the premiership. So for us, that'll still be the goal. That's 12 months away, and all we're thinking about at the moment, from a planning point of view, is just trying to keep things fresh for the guys, try some new things, have variety in the training, and try and keep them fresh. That pre-Christmas phase is the toughest one, and sometimes the one where you get players dropping out because it's all too hard. So that's what we want to try and avoid. We want it to be hard, but like I say, keep it interesting for the players.
You mentioned there the potential players coming into your squad. Kim, any signings on the radar for next season?
We probably don't want to announce until we've actually got the pen on paper. We have been very active in that department. We've only chased 3 or 4 players. We've only got 3 or 4 leaving, so it hasn't been a big shopping list, and we think we're going to get all the guys we want. But there's a couple of back rowers, a centre, and a half 5'8". We just didn't have any depth in that area this year, so they're the positions we're looking to cover. Like I say, we're pretty close to signing off on the 4 guys in particular we wanted, but until they put their pen to paper, we won't announce those.
And Kim, just on signings, mate, Parramatta haven't been on the phone to you? Your excellent record now?
No, I haven't heard anything.
You can tell us, mate. We won't tell anyone.
I won't be holding my breath, but I'm pretty happy up here. I probably see we're a better chance as a premiership than them at the moment.
Well, we'll leave it there, mate. Before we let you go, one last question, mate, for the big game tomorrow night. What's your tip? Manly up against the Roosters. Who do you think will win?
I think it's going to be one of the great grand finals. I don't think it'll be 4-0. I think both teams are great attacking teams as well as great defensive teams. So I'm tipping Manly just. I reckon about 20-18, something like that.
Daly Cherry Evans and Mackay by, of course.
Be a cracking game of football. All right, we'll leave it there, mate. Thank you very much for being with us again this week. And we've said it about 4 times now, but once again, congratulations on the win last week. Thank you very much for being with us. We'll catch you again next time, mate. Kim Williams from the Mackay Cutters, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, guys. My pleasure.
No worries, mate. We'll take a break here on SportsScene. We'll come back. We'll talk some rugby league. Stay with us.
Life. Life is for living. So live it. Life. Life is for giving. So give it. Giving blood is cool. Needing it isn't. Red Cross. Give a little. Life is for living. Life is for giving. Help save lives. Please give blood.
Wanted, dead, or alive. Your station sponsor, AAA Car Body Removals, will pay top dollar for all cars, trucks, and 4-wheel drives, and they'll come and pick up free. Phone Joe on 0411 346 446. 25th year on-air celebrations coming soon.
101 FM.
I'm going to tell you about the most lovable animal in the world, the Australian native koala. sadly they're under constant threat. The three largest risks they face are wild and suburban dogs, automobiles and urban development. These cuddly little fellows need your love and support. Remember, no tree, no me. Men and women of Australia, the koalas need you. Visit SaveTheKoala.com.
G'day, Con again, remember? Air conditioner. We know that Nick from Marshall Air Conditioning and Refrigeration is damn good at his job, but sometimes the unthinkable happens. Just last week, Kel from production just ran out of wind. Sadly, Nick had to let him go to that great big cooler in the sky. But before you could say inverter, Nick was installing a brand new model. Boy, he's fast. And Kelly's not a bad looker either. So for sales, service and installation in all areas, call Nick anytime. 0417 715 137.
Your station sponsor, 101 FM.
You're listening to Saturday Sports Scene on 101 FM.
Welcome back to Sports Scene here on 101 FM. 22 minutes past 9. Kevin Braysher, Darren Madigan, Chris Chard, Ethan James, Craig Crowley. Everybody's here. It's time now to launch into the NRL Grand Final week. Last week with the AFL Grand Final, we had the team songs both times coming back from the news. We didn't really have that this week. And for a moment there, I considered using some Ricky Martin music just because he's there for Grand Final entertainment. Then I thought better of it because I wish the NRL thought better of it too, just quietly. But that's just my opinion.
And isn't that another reason why we're glad Freo didn't win?
For that song.
Oh.
Good times. Heath definitely likes the song. All right, let's talk some footy now, guys. Before we get to the grand final, of course, the Dally M medals was this week. An incredibly close race at the top of the board there. Cooper Cronk eventually coming home, 2 points clear of Todd Carney, Jonathan Thurston, Daly Cherry Evans, who all were on equal second there. Guys, what do we think, first of all? Cooper Cronk picking up Dally M medal. Deserved winner, what do we think?
Yeah, look, I mean, Cooper Cronk's been a great player for a long time now. There's been questions that maybe this year he wasn't quite up to what he was last year, but he's had a big year. Started altitude training in the off season with the Brisbane Lions, and he managed to get 2 points in the last round. I think he got half a point for every field goal he missed against the Titans in that last game. So a bit fortunate. He's very fortunate. Todd Carney did his hamstring with 2 rounds to go. Otherwise, I think Toddy would have got there, but well deserved from Cooper, I think.
Yeah, he's the ultimate professional, really, when you look around and you see the way he prepares for rugby league. And as Chris said there, altitude training, I mean, he went out of his way in the preseason to, prepare for the footy. So I've seen him a bit around with the involvement with Easts, and he always holds himself, he's a bloke of, immense value. So I think he's a genuine bloke and a good representative, to have at the very pinnacle.
And I think it's really significant in the fact that the three have always been named together, obviously Slater, Cronk and...
Mate, they were dates.
Cameron Smith. It's now good to see...
Together. That's not a joke, that's actually true.
It's great to see they're all now on the same playing field. They've all won a Dally M, and I think that's really important because it would be hard to say, they're all in the same sentence and one's missing a medal. Yeah. So now they've all got it. They got the set. So that's good to see.
That in itself was pretty incredible. Yeah. 3 players from the same team in the same era have all won Player of the Year medals. Darren, it's a pretty rare sort of thing to see there. It just speaks volumes to what great players the three of them are.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, it's not bad for us either, for Queensland, given the dynasty that's been going on. But yeah, look, I mean, fantastic. I mean, Storm will be very, very happy, and I guess there's a certain amount of justness about it all too, finally seeing him get the medal.
Yeah, he finished, I think, second a couple of years ago. It was second or third the year Billy Slater won back in 2011. So Cameron Smith finishing fourth this year. It's amazing they can take votes off each other and still end up at the top of the board there. But yeah, as I say, Todd Carney, Jonathan Thurston, Daly Cherry Evans, all three of them finishing in a tie for second. Jonathan Thurston storming home at the back end. I was kind of pulling for him, hoping to see a third win, but it wasn't to be. Cooper Cronk, very well deserved. Those other two great players as well. You'd have to think Daly Cherry Evans will win one in the next couple of years as well. He's just getting better and better. Some of the other awards from the night: Rep Player of the Year, Cameron Smith. He also picked up Captain of the Year and Hooker of the Year. It was a busy night for Cameron Smith, even though he didn't win the big one at the end. The Proven Summons Medal for Fans' Choice went to Greg Inglis. Coach of the Year went to Trent Robertson. Rookie of the Year to George Burgess. Quick look at the Team of the Year. Fullback of the Year, Greg Inglis. On the wing, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. Centre, Jamie Lyon. 5/8 was tied between Jonathan Thurston and Todd Carney. Halfback was Cooper Cronk. Prop, Andrew Fafita. Hooker, Cameron Smith. second row Boyd Cordner, lock Corey Parker. Guys, what do we think of that team of the year? Any omissions, any things that, any shout-outs that you like there? What did you think?
Yeah, look, obviously one of the ones that stood out for me was Jorge Tafua. Obviously he had that, missed a couple of weeks with that infraction that he got from that unfortunate incident, so that might have cost him a bit there. And also everyone's talking about Sonny Bill Williams getting brushed for Boyd Cordner. It was a bit of an eye-opener there. So apart from that, though, it's pretty hard to argue with most of those selections. I'm pretty happy with them.
I agree, but Ethan, what do you think? Sonny Bill in the second row, Boyd Cordner getting second row of the year. Sonny Bill didn't feature in the top 20 votes either. What did you think?
Yeah, there's no doubt that Boyd Cordner had a terrific season for such a young player. But yeah, Sonny has had a much better year than Boyd Cordner. I think most sort of general league fans and ardent league fans would feel the same way, just what he brings to a side and the way he's played this year, for sure.
Ethan, it's been banded around that Sonny Bill Williams might not be involved with rugby league next year. Whether it's true or not, no one's to know. Does that hold any credibility when it comes to choosing? Or do you reckon, no, regardless, we'll choose them on that year's performance?
The panel is made up of commentators, ex-players who are on the commentary team for Fox Sports, Channel 9, Sky News, Sky Sport over in New Zealand, and it's also made up for 6 Daily Telegraph's journos. So they're the ones who make up the decisions there, just so people know.
Yeah, and just on that, I mean, they've made him essentially the face of the game. He's done absolutely everything. We had the internal monologue from Sonny before round one.
Game one, yeah.
Great insight. But he's been the face of the game. 9 have used him relentlessly, so I don't really think that holds too much clout. I'm not sure how he didn't pick up more votes, to be honest, because he was outstanding in some matches.
Well, at the end of the day, he didn't. Boyd Cordner had a great season. He deserves some recognition for that, but I agree. I tend to think Sonny Bill was head and shoulders the best second row this year. Also, I was really happy to see Corey Parker pick up lock of the year. Yeah. He's been fantastic. Andrew Fafita, I think, probably the most improved player in rugby league this year, guys.
Yeah, look, I mean, he's a big unit. It's hard to believe the West Tigers let him go a couple of years ago and picked up Adam Blair instead, and he's played like a bastard ever since. Yeah, look, Andrew Fafita, he's just bigger. You look at him and he's bigger than a rugby league player. He's huge. He's just a big, big man.
And he's still so fit too. Like, he's a massive frame, but the amount of work that he gets through, it's just remarkable, really.
That was it for the Dally M's this year. We'll leave that there for now because we're going to move on to the NRL Grand Final, 28 minutes past 9 here on Sports Scene. We'll start with the Sydney Roosters. They're, of course, minor premiers for this year. Last year they finished 13th, believe it or not. It's a long move up the ladder. Their win-loss record, 18 wins, 6 losses in the regular season. Number 1 attacking team and the number 1 defensive team this year. They've won 3 of their last 5. Their last grand final appearance was in 2010. Their last win was back in 2002. Their finals run so far, they defeated Manly 4-0 in the first week, and then last week a big win over Newcastle 40-14. Guys, I've got to ask you about these guys. The biggest thing with them, of course, like we're talking about Sonny Bill there, but coming into a new era with them, a new coach and a lot of new signings. James Maloney, Sonny Bill, as we said, Michael Jennings, Luke O'Donnell. A lot of these big name signings, they've all really delivered, haven't they, this year? And it's been a big reason why they've been so good this year.
Yeah, look, they've got a pretty interesting philosophy at the Roosters there. They're very crash and burn.
Yes.
They'll go very good, and then a couple of years later go very down, and then they'll buy big, and then they'll sell big. So, look, this year it's worked out for them. New coach, Sonny Bill, new halves pairing. It's come good. So, look, you have to give them full credit for that. It's just going to be whether they can keep it a bit more consistent over the next 5 or 6 years, I guess.
It is the question. Mate, one of the signings there, Michael Jennings, I think he's probably had his best year. Consistency level, he's probably had his best year ever this year. What do you think, Ethan?
Yeah, and there were some, doubts over the Roosters picking him up, the way that he left Penrith and the way that his form was before that. But yeah,
it's playing reserve grade last year.
Yeah, exactly. And he still played for New South Wales. Shows how desperate they are. But
cheap shot.
It's my last show, man. I can fire at you. But yeah, as Chris was saying, like all their signings have delivered and some. Like there are even question marks over Sonny Bill and the way he'd fit in on the short-term contract, but
maybe not Michael Oldfield. He doesn't really see much of him.
But poor old Michael. But yeah,
Hanatscheck.
But yeah, I think they've got a really well-balanced sort of squad too. They've got skill in sort of every position as well, or players that can sort of ball play, but even all the way into the front row, like Jared Hargreaves can offload a bit, and Sonny Bill.
Just on that, Sam Moa. Where's he coming from? He's come from Hull, Tongan representative. I believe he played at PBC, Tongan representative, Sam Moa. It's an interesting story there, but he's been one of the finds of the season. I think Robbo brought him back from Super League, and he's just been superb for them this year.
He's been absolutely outstanding. Like you say, one of those guys, most rugby league fans probably wouldn't even know who he was at the start of this season. He's come on in leaps and bounds, has been absolutely outstanding, and a lot of players in that forward pack have really come on a lot this year. Boy Cordner, of course, picking up second row of the year. Aiden Guerra, I think, has had a great season as well, making up a good back row. And you mentioned him then, Ethan. Jared Warrior-Hargraves has been fantastic this season, by far his best year. Let's have a quick look at the rest of their lineup. We'll start with fullback Anthony Minicello. Darren, I'll throw this one to you. He has an opportunity to pick up an unwanted record. He could become the first player in rugby league history to lose 5 grand finals, mate. If you're a player at the end of your career having lost 5 grand finals, win 1, what do you think? What do you make of that, mate?
I tell you what, that's a record you don't want to have, isn't it? 5 grand finals. Is that all with the one club?
Yeah. He lost 2000, 2003, 2004, 2010, and potentially, if they lose tomorrow, it'll be 2013.
Look, I tell you what, from an Australian football background, I mean, there's a few Geelong players from the late 80s and early 90s who can feel with him on that one. They went through a number of grand finals and lost those. So, yeah, look, I mean, it's a record he obviously doesn't want to have. I don't think it's a record he's going to have after Sunday. I'm inside all year, and I think they're probably going to come through in the end anyway. So I think hopefully he's not going to have to worry about having 5 next to his name.
Well, let's read through the likely Roosters lineup, and they're saying at this point in time, Boy Cordner and Luke O'Donnell are both expected to be cleared to play. The final decision will be made today on that one a little later on. But let's have a look at the likely Roosters lineup for this one. Anthony Minicello at fullback, Daniel Tupou and Roger Tuivasa-Sheck on the wings, Michael Jennings, Sean Kenny-Dowell in the centres. The halves pairing, James Maloney, Mitchell Pearce. In the front row, Jared Warrior-Hargraves, Jake Friend, Frank Paul Nuasala, Aiden Guerra, Sonny Bill Williams, Boyd Cordner is the likely back row, as I say, assuming Boyd Cordner is fit. The bench will most likely be Daniel Mortimer, Mitch Orbison, Sam Moa, and Luke O'Donnell. Guys, what do we make of that side? Where are the strengths, aside from maybe some of the players we haven't spoken about already?
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously the Roosters' strength is their defence, you know. Big mobile back row, lots of offloads. Also, you know, they're outside men, pretty dynamic. Not too many weak links in there. I mean, there was probably some question marks over Jake Friend's place in that team at the start of the season, but, I mean, now they're talking about him as a potential smoky for the World Cup. So, look, their bench, I mean, Luke O'Donnell's probably getting towards the end of his career, can have a great brain snap during a game as well. He's got a touch of the psychos about him. But apart from that, you know, pretty strong-looking team for mine, especially when you take Martin Kennedy not in that team as well.
Yeah, just looking at the backs as well. I mean, they've got a fair bit of speed and a fair bit of footwork out there. You know, the speed of Jennings, you know, the size of someone like Sean Kenny-Dowell, and then, you know, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck on the wing. He's going to be fantastic to watch when he, you know, moves to fullback next year with Minicello finding a way there. He's an outstanding player already. So.
Yep. Look, to you two guys there, obviously, you know, the experts in the field, you know, is it a situation which the halves are obviously very dynamic, both sides. Do they cancel each other out, or do they bring the other players into play, you know, for either side? It doesn't really matter whether Manly or the Roosters, which one you want to talk about first, but do they complement each other, or do they actually work for the other part of the side?
Yeah, just on that, there's been a lot of talk about the halves and how they're pretty even. Personally, I think Manly have a pretty clear advantage there. I think Daly Cherry Evans under pressure is just, you can't fault him. He doesn't get flustered. And Kieran Foran is just so tough, just a tough player. And I think they've just got that coolness under pressure, which I don't really see in Mitchell Pearce. Sometimes you see him get a little bit flustered, a little bit frustrated. I think DC steering the ship, I think Manly's going to have a pretty good advantage in that area there.
They have got a great understanding with each other. That's why I brought up the point of, do they, you know, the Manly side seem to, look, the two halves just seem to work hand in hand. Do the Roosters go out and try to use their backs to be more, to bring them into play more so than the Manly seem to use each other very, very well?
Yeah, look, good point. Obviously, the other one you got to think about with Manly there is Brett Stewart getting those chip kicks over the top as well. So, yeah, look, very hard one. It's going to be a lot of pressure on Mitchell Pearce. Everyone's going to be watching him to see if he can pull it out in a big game, I think.
Yeah, I'm sort of on the same page as Chris there. I think the two forward packs will cancel each other out, essentially. The Roosters have probably got a more sort of skillful, flamboyant type pack, but I think Manly are tough enough to hold them at bay, and it'll come down to which halves pairing can sort of steer the ship home. And as Chris said, yeah, the Manly halves pairing just have that better sort of combination and probably understanding of each other's game as well. And they've shown in the past, how cool they are and composed they are under pressure. So I think that will be sort of where the game's won on something.
Yeah, honestly, if Cherry Evans was from New South Wales, he would have played 12 Origins by now. He's he's a fantastic player, just behind a lot of good players there in the Maroon squad.
Yeah. We'll take a break here on SportzScene. We'll come back from the break. We'll talk through the Manly lineup and stay with the NRL Grand Final. Stay with us right here on SportzScene.
Bushfire season is here. Is your home in the line of fire? Bushfire not only threatens rural communities, if you live in a suburban or semi-rural area, you could also be at risk. Prepare yourself for the fire season. Clear the yard, get rid of leaves and twigs from the gutters, and know what to do if fire threatens your home. Remember, this year it could be you in the line of fire. For advice, contact your local fire station. This is a safety message from Queensland Fire and Rescue.
This is our home, this is our place. Whatever we do for tomorrow. Driving around, don't use the ground. Do the right thing, use the right pin. Keep Queensland beautiful. Keep it up, do the right thing. Keep Queensland beautiful. Keep it up, do the right thing.
For the best musical memories from the 50s and the 60s, it's Ted's Memories. Saturdays from 4 p.m. and only on 101 FM.
101 FM.
Now it's back to Saturday Sports Scene on 101 FM.
Welcome back to Sports Scene here on 101 FM. 23 minutes to 10, your next fresh news update coming up at the top of the hour. Kevin Braysher, Darren Madigan, Chris Chart, Ethan James, Craig Crowley. Everybody's in studio today. We're talking the NRL Grand Final. It's now time to take a look at the Manly Sea Eagles side. They finished fourth on the ladder this year. Finished fourth on the ladder last year as well, telling you all about their consistency. Win-loss record, 15 wins, 8 losses, the 1 draw. Fourth in attack this year, second in defence. They've also won 3 of their last 5. Their last grand final was in 2011. Their last premiership also in 2011. They, of course, losing to the Roosters in the first week of the finals, then wins over the Sharks and over South Sydney last week, getting them through to the grand final decided this week. The Manly side, look, they've been so consistent for a long time now. There's so much experience in this side. They're battle-hardened. They know how to play in these grand finals. There's 11 players in this team taking the field tomorrow night that were in the team in 2011. A lot of them still there. So many guys in the team, you know, the likes of Brett Stewart, Jamie Lyon, Matt Eye, Dave Williams, Foran, Cherry Evans, all these guys sort of won premierships at this club before. How much does that help them going into this game? All the experience that they've had winning these big games.
Yeah, I think it's massive. As we were saying just before the break there, with the halves pairing having that experience, you know, under pressure and handling it well in the past will leave me in good stead. But just on Manly's consistency, I don't think people really give them enough credit for what they've done over the past sort of 5 or so years. I mean, Melbourne's always talked about as the club, you know, that can take, you know, the fringe first grade and the also round and, you know, turn them into, you know, member of a grand final winning squad. But you look at some of the names in the Manly side this year, guys like, you know, Justin Horrow and Tom Simons, Brenton Lawrence is another one. I mean, they were all on the periphery at their respective clubs, and they've come together at Manly. And Justin Horrow, I think, is starting in the back row in the grand final. So it says something for the culture at Manly and the way they can get the best out of their players.
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously Brent Lawrence is the big one there. A couple of years ago, I think it was only 3 years ago, he was working at Jets Gym at Varsity Lakes as a personal trainer, you know. It's just an amazing story. And he's another bolter for the World Cup squad after this game. Yeah, look, they had a huge turnover at the end of the year, Manly. They bought, you know, they went out and it was like a rich couple at IKEA. They just bought everything. And they've turned guys like Horrow from Para into just, you know, a champion player. So, look, they've done extremely well there. And I think Jeff Tuvey has shown that he isn't just riding on Desi's coattails. He's become his own coach, a very, very angry coach. But, look, if he doesn't have a heart attack in the next 12 months, he's going to be one of the best coaches, I think. Yeah.
If he doesn't have a heart attack in the next 12 months, I think there needs to be an investigation. For that one. Darren Madigan, mate. Look, I think a really interesting thing about the culture at Manly is they lost their coach, Des Hasler, at the end of 2011 after winning that premiership. A guy who really, in a lot of ways, was responsible for helping build the current culture of this squad. Yet they come in a year later, Jeff Tuvey takes over, and it's seamless. They're as strong as ever, mate. How much does that speak volumes for the culture of the club and I guess the setup around football there?
Oh yeah, look, Manly have a winning culture over many, many, many decades. I mean, they're like the Collingwood of the NRL in a lot of respects. Everybody loves to hate them, but they're always there or thereabouts. I mean, what is it, 4 out of the last 7? for this year. They're going in for. So, you got to take your hat off to them. It's just a matter of going that next step. They finished 4th on the ladder this year, and they'll be there. The thing is, for me too, I'm always big on the playmakers because, obviously, your forwards have got to get the ball in the first place to bring it up. And we take a look at the playmakers there, and you look at someone like Mitchell Pearce. We were talking about him before for the Roosters. He gives away a lot of penalties, doesn't he? And yet, Daly Cherry Evans, everybody's giving him like 8.5s and 9s on player ratings, especially coming into the grand final. So it's going to be, I think that's going to be a big difference in the match that people probably aren't giving enough credit to.
It's probably the big matchup of the match is the half combination because, of course, you've got the New South Wales halves up against the current New South Wales captain in Kieran Foran and Daly Cherry Evans, who's really the next in line to be Australian halfback there. So it's going to come down to that. I think Mitchell Pearce has got a lot to prove, though. Like, you saw him, just the way he reacts to constantly being asked about compared to how did you handle after Origin, after losing at Origin, after failing at Origin again. I think there's a lot of determination in Mitchell Pearce, and I think he's going to go out there and he's really going to have a crack. Whether that delivers into a 5-star performance in the grand final, that's another thing. But I think his mindset, he's going to be determined to go out there and prove a lot of the doubters wrong.
He's got to stay disciplined. He's got to stay disciplined. And if he starts giving away penalties like he has been for a lot of the season, he's going to end up letting his side down pretty badly. He's got to stay disciplined this match.
Yeah, unfortunately, history is against Mitchell there. His old man lost 2 grand finals, 88 and the Heartbreaker and 89, which I'll watch when I get home today. And Pearce has already lost one himself. Just on giving away penalties, you look at these 2 teams, and geez, there's some hotheads in there. You've got Steve Maddai, Luke O'Donnell.
Yep,
Watmow. Just
Warrior Hargraves.
Oh, mate. It's obviously they can't throw the punches these days, but if it blew up, it'd be something special, wouldn't it?
Beyond for young and old. Let's take a look at this Manly Seagulls lineup. At fullback, Brett Stewart. On the wings, George Tafua, David Williams. In the centres, not the halves, I should say. In the centres, Jamie Lyon, who is the captain, and Steve Maddai. In the halves, Kieran Foran and Daly Cherry Evans. In the front row, Brenton Lawrence, Matt Bellin, Brent Kite. Back row, Anthony Watmow, Justin Horrow, Glenn Stewart. And the bench will be David Gower, Jamie Bureau, Tom Simons, and George Rose. Very strong team, Ethan. Very balanced team.
Yeah, it is. And you look, but you're looking through there are some lesser names as well that'll have to stand up. And whether Manly have that sort of depth in the squad that they had over the past few seasons to really translate, a grand final appearance into a grand final win remains to be seen. But yeah, just looking through their backs as well, we haven't really spoken too much about them. I think Brett Stewart coming back in to their lineup, he just adds so much more. Just his ability to turn half breaks into breaks, his speed, finishes tries what other players wouldn't be able to do, and just his combination with his brother as well there, Glenn Stewart, those two.
While you're on that, Nathan, just a question I want to bring up. Like, there was a lot of talk last week about Brett Stewart coming back in and how much of a bonus it was going to be. A game on, is he going to bring more to the table? How much better is he going to be for that run? Obviously, fitness and getting accustomed to the last game, it's pretty significant. Now he's got that game under his belt. Does he bring a lot more, do you think?
Yeah, well, he'll obviously be better for the run without a doubt. I mean, he was pretty good last week too, coming back, to be honest. And yeah, as we spoke about before, that big stage experience, and yeah, the combinations that Manly have through their playmakers, I think, is something that will really leave them in good stead.
And do you honestly think that, we spoke about it before, about the halves, now with Brett Stewart, another game under his belt, does he come into play more? Does he play off the halves a lot more?
Yeah, for sure. It gives them someone to go to, and they combine so well as it is already. And who was the fullback there? It was
Peter Hickey,
yeah. Fantastic player who did a good job coming in, but just, Brett Stewart's ability to run off the halves and hit holes, inside passes.
Provided Michael Crocker's not playing against him, Brett Stewart has a pretty good game in the big matches.
Yeah, that's it.
And just on Brett Stewart's injury, what about Sonny Bill Williams' injury? Any update on Sonny Bill Williams' calf there, or?
No, I know that he's been training with the side again this week, and I think grand finals are one of those situations where if you're 3/4, you'll play anyway. Yeah, so I think Sonny Bill's the type he'll be out there.
You know what they call a Kiwi on one leg, don't you?
What?
Not even, bro. Where's that soundbite?
He's on fire out here.
We don't have an automatic laugh.
I think
laugh track or something.
we'll take a break
Sort it
here
out,
on
boys.
Sports Scene. When we come back from the break, we'll do some final matchups for the grand final and give our tips. Stay with us right here on Sports Scene.
Hi, Steve Karen Lawyers. If you've been dudded in a will, we'll investigate and if we can, represent you. No win, no fee, no litigation loans. Call 1300 Lawyer. Put it in your phone or go to karenlawyers.com.au.
Your station sponsor.
Hi, this is Eric Banner, patron of the Australian Childhood Foundation. There were over 300,000 reports of children being abused in Australia last year alone. It's a problem we have to face up to. Child abusers are counting on you to do nothing, but there is something you can do. By going to stopchildabusenow.com.au, you can find out how we can help protect our children. So please, stop doing nothing.
Veterans, their partners and war widows may be eligible to receive assistance from the Department of Veteran Affairs for one-on-one exercise conditioning and or rehabilitation programs with a doctor's referral to an exercise physiologist. Veterans who hold gold or white DVA pension cards and who reside in the Logan City area are encouraged to telephone Rebecca on 0437 542 095 for more information.
25th year on-air celebrations coming soon. 101 FM.
And now it's back to Saturday Sports Scene on 101 FM.
Welcome back to Sports Scene here on 101 FM. 13 minutes to 10. Next fresh news update coming up at the top of the hour. Kevin Braysher, Darren Madigan, Chris Chart, Ethan James, Craig Crowley. We're all still here with you now, guys. Let's go through it. Tail of the tape. Who's going to get up and who's going to win this grand final? We'll start with the spine because that's where a lot of the discussion comes from. Of course, Manly up against the Roosters in the spine. Who's got the better spine? When I say the spine, I mean the fullback, the halves, and the hooker. Of course. What do we think? Who's got the edge?
Well, not Richie Fioso. He's had the neck injury, so spine's no good. But no,
he's definitely not got the spine.
So Richie Fioso. But look, the spine for both teams, obviously both almost fully representative spines there. Apart from Jake Friend at the Roosters, who may be at the end of this year and has been playing great football. Look, personally, I'm leaning towards Manly here, just for a bit of experience. Also, Daly Cherry Evans, just a fantastic player, great under pressure. So, personally, I'm going on Manly there.
The hookers are an interesting battle, aren't they? They're sort of the two sort of unheralded type of players. Jake Friend has really come on and leaps and bounces. You keep saying, Bolter for the test squad. He wouldn't look out of place if he ended up in that squad. He's been fantastic this year. Ethan, what do you make of Matt Ballin and Jake Friend for the Eagles and for the Roosters, respectively?
Yeah, they're both sort of similar players, really. I mean, they both rack up massive tackle counts there in the middle. They're not... When you look at some of the other hookers like Isaac Luke and guys like Robbie Farah, they're not probably the quickest out of dummy half, but they give really slick service. And Jake Friend in particular, playing behind the Roosters forwards, he does still get out of dummy half a fair bit, so he's one to watch there for sure. But yeah, on the spine, I'm sort of on the same page as Chris. I think Manly have a slight edge just with their grand final experience. And Anthony Minicello at fullback for the Roosters, as good a player as he has been, he's at the back end of his career and look on like a head-to-head type matchup with Brett Stewart. Not that they come together on the field or anything, but on a head-to-head battle there, I think Brett Stewart just gives Manly that slight edge.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think there's great players on both sides. I think the Roosters got an excellent spine. I think Manly got an excellent spine. But I think if you went one-on-one for each one, I think you'd almost come out with all Manly there and with slight edge in each spot. So I think Manly have got the slight edge there, but it'll be both sides very good, very well represented in those areas. Let's look at the outside backs now, guys. The centres and the wings for each side. We talked about it a little bit more. Like there's a lot of flashy type of play in that Roosters time. Whereas with Manly, there's a fair bit of experience and a fair bit of grit, I suppose, with Jamie Lyon and Steve Maddow. What do we think?
Yeah, look, Jamie Lyon is he's a professional these days, isn't he? It's a shame he doesn't play for New South Wales. But he looked fantastic player and he seems to rise to the occasion in his big games. Perhaps the only worry there is his goal kicking. I think he's kicking about 68% compared to James Maloney, who's up in... Yeah. Well, if it does come down to a bit of a slugfest, like some of those 80s grand final between the Bulldogs and the Eels, you want your goal kicker to be hitting those goals, So that's the only way I can fold him. And Maddai can get an injury, can find an injury somehow. So apart from that, Eagles outside backs pretty fantastic. Roosters a little bit of inexperience with Tui Hanatscheck and Sean Kenny-Dow can pull out a feet for hands game every now and then. Yes. But look, leaning towards Manly there again. Just more experienced in the centres there, I think.
Yeah, probably agreeing too much. It's going along the same sort of path. Roosters have probably got potentially more dynamic backline, but maybe a little more sort of inconsistent, like rocks or diamonds type stuff from the Roosters. You know sort of what you're going to get from Manly there with those two centres. And as you said with Sean Kenny-Dowell, he can get found out a bit in defence too sometimes. I'm not exactly sure who's marking up on who, whether it be Lyon or Kenny-Dowell. But, Jamie Lyon's form has been fantastic lately as well. He's such a creative player for a centre as well. Probably a slight edge to Manly in the backs as well.
There's representative players all over the place for both these teams, isn't there? It's pretty much the internationals up against other internationals. Again, I'm with both of you. I think Manly a slight edge there. What about the forwards, guys? There's, like we talked about before, again, a similar type of situation here. Manly just tough all the way through. It's sort of the way they're built. A little bit more flair in this Roosters team, but I think that's selling their forwards a little bit short. They know how to play it tough, like Jared Waerea-Hargreaves, even Sonny Bill Williams, who's known for the flick pass and his ability to ball play. He knows how to get down and dirty and do the hard work where it matters. Who's got the edge in the forwards, guys?
Yeah, that'll be a really interesting battle, and looking through it on paper, it's really hard to split them. As you said there, probably Sydney have got a reputation of being slightly flashier, but they're still equally as tough, obviously. And if Sonny Bill can pull out one of those performances. He's been under a bit of an injury cloud and food poisoning and all that sort of smoke screeny type stuff, perhaps. But if he pulls out one of his, A-grade performances, he can almost single-handedly break the grand final open for Sydney, I reckon.
It's interesting, though. I mean, Glenn Stewart in games gone past has pulled out similar sort of games where he almost plays as a second 5'8", tapping onto the centres there. Look, I think the Roosters do have the edge in the forwards. They're going to play a simple game, I believe, and just try to defend, and just roll up the field. I think keep it nice and tight, not too many offloads. They do have. I think if you put them on the scales, the Roosters would probably outweigh them, and that's not a dig at their HGH concerns at the moment, big Roosters. But look, they're a big bunch of Roosters, aren't they? They're a big team, and Manly have got a couple of workman-like guys in there. They've got George Rose coming off the bench, a little bit of flair, the all-rounder Georgie. But
he's very rounded.
Couldn't get any rounder than George. So look, he's going to Melbourne. Be interesting if Craig Bellamy knocks a bit of pudding off him. But I'm leaning towards the Roosters in the forwards. Just a size thing there.
I tend to agree. I think the Roosters have got the edge in the forwards as well, guys. So basically, the conclusion we've all come to there is Manly got it in the backs, but the Roosters forward pack, and we've seen a lot of that this year with their great defensive displays and the way they played. You saw that just in that game, the last game of the regular season, when they came up against the Rabbitohs. The Rabbitohs have got that, much publicised massive forward pack. The Roosters forwards really took it to them that day, and it was a dominant performance really by the Roosters. It was a great win. So I think it'll be an awesome contest in the middle. Like you say, a lot of wild cards potentially if things get hairy. Be a very interesting game of football in the forwards. I think there's a slight edge there to the Roosters. What about a tip for the grand final itself, guys, and for the Clive Churchill? What do we think?
Based on what we've said, I'm going to lean slightly towards Manly. And if they have a strong game and play well, it'll be hard to probably go past someone like Daly Cherry Evans there for the man of the match. Clive Churchill.
Yeah, look, my tip for the grand final is probably appalling pre-match entertainment. Small old bloke's been driven around in utes. No, for the game, I'm going to have to go Manly by 10. Pretty confident there. I think the Roosters just had a bumpy build-up. Rookie coach, Manly, Jeff Tuvey, he's been there. He's played in grand finals. He's been around grand final winning teams. He's got his face stood on in grand finals. He's done it all, so very experienced. And for man of the match, Clive Churchill, look, I'm going to have to jump in the DCE bandwagon here.
It's a big bandwagon.
And look, Duke, I think they'll Manly, and I think Manly are probably more than 10. I reckon they're quite significant, and that's just sitting here listening to the experts talk. But the other thing is, I reckon there'll be so much focus on the halves. I think you'll see Brett Stewart come up, and he'll be a Clive Churchill medalist.
What do you think, Darren?
I think it's going to be an incredibly even match. I mean, you go through the two sides, there's nothing in it. I mean, at the moment, I'm tipping the Roosters, and I think if it is Sonny Bill's last game, he's going to put in a match to remember, and I'm tipping him for the Clive Churchill as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've been going back and forth on it all week. The more I think about it, the more Manly sort of firm in my thinking. At the start of the week, I lean towards the Roosters. I think they got great balance on that side, and like you say, Darren, Sonny Bill, I think will have a big game, regardless of the result. But yeah, the more I think about it, the more the week goes on. Manly seem primed. They seem ready. They're the type of team, they learn from past losses. And that game 4-0 when they went down to the Roosters a couple of weeks ago, Manly are going to be much, much better. The addition of Brett Stewart, who wasn't there in that game, Manly with the experience they've got in that side, I think Manly win. I think Jamie Lyon for the Clive Churchill medal will be my tip.
It's been a long, long time since a team's beat another team 4 times in a season, though. The Roosters have beaten Manly 3 times already this year, so it could happen again.
Could happen again. It'll be a cracking game of football tomorrow night. ANZ Stadium, 7:15. Make sure you're watching that. It'll be a cracking game of football. We'll take a break here on Sports Scene. We'll come back. We'll wrap it all up. Stay with us.
It was heartbreaking when we first found out our baby boy had cataracts, but Vision Australia has been able to reassure us from the start. Sensitivity to glare, depth perception and visual fatigue are his daily challenges. Vision Australia has helped us to face these challenges to give Sam the best possible start in life.
Help Vision Australia support children like Sam. Call 1300 84 7466.
Do you feel breathless after climbing a flight of stairs? Has walking to your car become an endurance event? You might have lung disease, even in its early stages. Visit www.lungfoundation.com.au to complete the lung health checklist, or call the Australian Lung Foundation on 1800 654 301. Catch lung disease before it catches up with you.
101 FM.
You're listening to Saturday Sports Scene on 101 FM.
Welcome back to Sports Scene here on 101 FM. Kevin Braysher here with you, rounding up what's been a big show here on Sports Scene. We talked a lot of NRL, a lot of other stuff earlier in the show as well. Still with us on the panel, the founding father of the sports team, Mr. Darren Madigan from the AFL Queensland Hall of Fame and the Southport Sharks, Mr. Craig Crowley from the East Tigers, Mr. Ethan James, and from the Raw.com.au, Rugby League Player Magazine and the Tweed Seagulls, Mr. Chris Chard. Guys, thanks very much for being with us this morning. It's been a great show. And look, we're wrapping things up a little earlier today. We've got to say a big farewell to our boy Ethan James. He's been with us since January this year. He's done an exceptional job on the show in all facets. It's been great fun having you on the show, mate. We're going to miss you a lot. Of course, tell us one more time, mate. Where are you heading? Why are you leaving us? What are you doing?
Well, I don't know why I'm leaving now with words like that. No, moving down to New South Wales, a little country town called Broken Hill, to be a sports journalist for their newspaper. So, bit of an adventure out into the middle of nowhere. But
the real world.
The real world, yeah. It exists outside this studio, apparently.
Mate, to his challenge has been down there before, so Mike, if they bring that back, you could be informed there, yeah.
Could be,
how we go.
What sort of stuff do they cover down in Broken Hill, mate? What's going on?
Well, Craig will be happy. It's mostly an AFL sort of town. There's a bit of rugby, although I haven't got into a debate with the editor yet as to whether it's league or union. I thought I'd leave that for a little bit later on. But yeah, all sorts of cricket. I'll keep in caboodle. So
tennis?
I'll be doing all that. Tennis, yeah.
Opal mining.
Yeah. Darts, probably a few cake bake-offs and that sort of stuff as well.
Did roo shooting.
Well, you'll be headed down, mate. What's the story? You're going to be heading down the drive. When do you start?
Yeah, but I'm making the drive tomorrow morning. It's about 16 hours, so splitting up into 2 segments of 8. Probably going to be catching the big NRL grand final from a pub somewhere in a place called Coonabarra Brand, which is
Coonabarra Unicorns. Yeah, they're a good team. Yeah.
Cabramatta, what's the matter? I'll be everywhere.
I think that's the footy team down there, the Coonabarra Unicorns, I believe.
Unicorns.
So, yeah.
Are they mystical teams?
Mate. They do. They always win by 1 point, mate. So.
Darren, you got any last words for Ethan before we send him off?
Absolutely, mate. I mean, on behalf of Sports Scene Media, mate, thanks for your contribution this year. It's been great, and we feel that we had a real find in you. So good luck with starting your journalism career proper, so to speak, in a real newspaper and all that sort of stuff down there. And look, you really enjoy it. I've done radio in country New South Wales, and the one thing, if you do right first up, get to know the community, become part of it, and it'll be one of the best experiences of your life, mate. And thank you for what you've done here.
All right, so I'd just like to thank you guys as well. I mean, you've welcomed me with open arms, and I didn't know anyone, either of you two or Darren as well before jumping on here, but definitely keep in contact. So thanks for everything as well.
Not a drama at all, mate. We wish you the best of luck down there. We will stay in touch. It's been a great show, as we say this morning. Darren, the podcast will be heading up a little later.
Yeah, we'll have it up by about 12:30, just like we did last week.
Beautiful. Thanks very much for being with us as always again, Darren.
Mate, thank you. And, what are we going to have this week? I think, let's have the Mumbai Indians winning the T20.
Pulling it out there.
Yeah.
To talk about. Craig, thanks for being here as always, mate.
No worries, and I'm sort of starting to get into the Bathurst mode, just getting ready for that, the grand final for the races.
That's it. Chris Chard, thank you very much for being with us here on SportsScene this morning.
Always a pleasure, mate.
And Ethan, of course, mate, best of luck. Thanks for being here once again.
Thank you. Good times. Good times.
We'll be off now. We'll be back next week here on SportsScene. Enjoy the grand final. Stay with us here on 101 FM.